Hi, it's Jonathan. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a large scene with hundreds of actors running smoothly on mobile using culling. So see in this scene, we have a big temple in the middle of a forest. And if I isolate the static mesh actor, I have 595 actors selected. This scene runs fine on PC, but on mobile, especially on low-end device, performance can quickly become a problem. So let's see how we're gonna use the culling to reach a stable 60 FPS on mobile. What is culling? Culling is a technique used to avoid rendering objects that don't need to be visible. The goal is simple, render less and improve performance. There are different types of culling, and we're gonna see the first one, what we called Frustum Culling. Okay, so to visualize the Frustum Culling, I'm gonna select my character, and if I go there and tap Camera Frustum, you're gonna see a purple cone. In this area, the object will be rendered, and outside of this cone, the object will be hidden. To visualize that, I'm gonna take control of my character. I'm gonna go a bit forward, for example, here. And here in command, I'm gonna write freeze rendering. And now if I get out of my character, you're gonna see, look, you can visualize the frostom. All the objects inside the cone are visible, but all the objects outside of it are becoming hidden. This is the frostom working. But of course, this culling is calculated in real time during your game. Up. And if I put freeze rendering again, up, all my scene appears again. So this is the first type of culling, and it is actually automatic in Unreal, so you don't have to set up anything. It's working like that. But you will see that sometimes, even with the frustum culling, for example, if my character is here, it has to render all of this object, and it can be too much for a phone. So we, we're gonna have to use a second type of culling that we call distance culling. What is distance culling? It's gonna be a culling, but this time based on the distance from the camera. If I take, for example, my roof and I go down to desired max draw distance. If I put, for example, 2500 unit, you go to the viewport and you press G. If you go, see, at 2500, my roof is disappearing from the camera. If you increase, if I put 5,000, it's gonna disappear at 5,000 units. So that's what we call distance culling. But of course, for my roof, I don't want it to disappear at 5,000 because it's gonna be obvious, like it's missing. But for some object, like for example, like if I take my example again, if I'm here, I can really cull all of these objects which are behind my main temple, so you're not gonna see it. So for sure, even this roof, I can put it at 2500. You're not gonna see it, the difference from the camera, but for your performance, you will see a big difference. On this project, for example, on low-end device, I was always losing FPS when the player are looking in this direction. And after I set up all the culling distance on this area, it fixed all my problem and I could reach 60 FPS on even on low-end device. On small object, you can be more aggressive. For example, this little amulet, I can put 3500, and you see, you're not gonna really see the object disappearing. So it really depends of your project, of your game. You don't want the player to notice the clipping, so you have to adjust the distance to not be visible for the player. So this is a way to set up the draw distance for a single object, but when you have 600 actors in your scene, you don't want to adjust each one manually. So I'm going to show you a technique to control the culling of multiple objects at once, and this is called a cull distance volume. Let's add one into our scene. You go here, you go to volume, and you have cull distance volume. I put one, I will put it in the center of my scene. So this is a volume. That means it's gonna affect objects which are inside. For doing a little demonstration, I'm gonna increase the size to 1000. So you see all my scene is fitting inside the volume. How is it working? It's simple. You put kind of rules with the size of the object. So for example, object which has a size of 300 will have a curl distance of, let's say, 2500. Okay? So you can see already object disappearing. And after you can put another size, for example, object of a size of 1000 will disappear at, let's say, 5000. And if you click here on the add element, you can add one more size. And for example, big object, 10,000, will have a curl distance of, let's say, 10,000. And then you press G and you see object will disappear with distance. Small object will disappear first and bigger object will stay visible at a longer distance. This is gonna help reducing the number of actors on the red and improve a lot the performance. So for sure, for the demonstration, I set the culling which is too strong, so it really depends of your scene and your object. One more thing I want to show you is you can actually override the parameter of the curl distance volume on object. For example, if I take my ground, now my ground is disappearing. I don't want my ground to disappear. I can just select it, and here you have here on the LOD, you have current max draw distance, 10,000. This is the distance in the curve volume which is applying to this object. You can have a local distance volume, you can uncheck that, and now you can put your own parameter. If I put 100, for example, you can see my ground disappear. But if I don't want my ground to disappear, you can just put 0. Everything will disappear, but not my ground. So it's very useful to put the general curve volume and after adjust object by object. For example, my roof, I can check too quickly. See, my roof has the current max draw distance 5000 because the object is smaller, so the curl distance category is different. And same, you can remove the curl distance volume, and it's not going to disappear. You have a option here too, never distance cull. If you check that, your object will never disappear. Also, you can have multiple curl distance volume in your scene. So you see, this is our demo curl volume, but if you check here, for this scene, I have 4 different curve volume, which has different parameter, stronger or lighter depending on the area. Okay, last thing I want to show you is the foliage. Foliage have culling distance too, but it is not on the detail panel. You have to go here on the selection and you go to foliage. And for example, I take this tree. I have different type of tree. I take this one. You go down and it's simply here. See? Cull distance. And if I put, for example, max 100, see, my tree will disappear. And if I put 15,000, it will disappear at 15,000. So it's exactly the same system than the object. But on foliage, especially on low-end device, it's even more important than the object. Because foliage has a big impact on performance. So really the cull distance on the tree has to be really well set to run well on mobile. But at the same time, you don't want always the same thing. You don't want the clipping to be too obvious. So you really have to check all your foliage. What I did on this application is I have different type of tree. Like I have more high resolution tree in the center of the map. This type of tree are a bit less good resolution, so they have less polygon, less leaf. And I have a third type of tree which is really low. And this one can have a higher culling distance. This one a distance which is a bit smaller, and this one the smallest distance of culling. So this way, on the appli, you're never gonna see the tree popping, and the performance will be safe. So that's it for this video. Culling is one of the easy way to improve performance on large scene in Unreal, especially on mobile, so don't hesitate to use it on your project. And see you on the next Unreal Engine tutorial.